Hello, literature lovers. It's March 9th, 2021, and I hope you are almost done with My Antonia because Thursday we're going to start our new book, which is called True Grit by Charles Portis. I think you're going to really like True Grit. It's a great story. It's an adventure story. Sorry, my dog. So I want to just talk a little bit for a second about the author. His name is Charles Portis, and he grew up in Arkansas, and he went, after graduating high school, he went on to become a Marine and served in the Korean War. And after he was discharged, 1955, he went on to college and studied journalism. He worked as a reporter for a while, including being on the staff of the New York Herald Tribune as their paper's bureau chief in London. And so, but he returned to Arkansas after a short period of that because he realized he just mostly wanted to write fiction. He didn't want to report the news, he wanted to write fiction. So we got a little, then he writes True Grit, okay? And so a little historical background on True Grit, okay? During the Civil War, there were guerrilla soldiers, not guerrilla like guerrilla, but guerrilla like not part of any official army, but they're fighting, okay? There was one notorious group called Quantrill's Raiders. They fought on behalf of the Confederacy under a man named William Quantrill. And they were basically just a collection of pro-Confederate men who didn't actually serve in the army. They just wanted to fight against the Union sympathizers where they lived in Missouri and Kansas, which were Union states at the time. So in 1862, the Confederate Army recognized Quantrill's Raiders as an official part of the Confederacy. But that didn't last very long. This affiliation did not last very long because Quantrill led his men into a town called Lawrence, Kansas, which was known for being very strong on the abolition of slaves. And so they went there in 1863 and they massacred, they murdered 200 civilians. These weren't even like soldiers. These were just civilian people. And they were basically getting revenge, not only for the fact that they were abolitionists, but also because a couple of women associated with some of the men in the gang had been put in jail. And so they were getting revenge for these women. But I don't know quite how that matches up with killing 200 people other than you just like killing. And Quantrill and his gang they were bad men. They did a lot of this. And when that happened, this massacre, then the Confederacy said, okay, no more, you're not part of us anymore. And at that point, they severed ties, and Quantrill's group kind of started to break up into groups of their own. They didn't stick together. One of those factions became a very notorious group of outlaws called the James Younger Gang. And that included Frank and Jesse James and their brothers and their friend Cole Younger, who were killers. They would rob trains and they would kill people. There was lots of murder with these gangs. So in True Grit, the sheriff character in True Grit, Rooster Cogburn, is a former member of Quantrill's Raiders. And I'll talk about that in the book. And he knows Frank James and Cole Younger. And in the story, he talks about performing with them in a traveling circus as an old man later after this story. So True Grit is realistic, much like My Antonia was realistic, but it's a little more contemporary. We're moving forward in history. It's realistic. It's Western fiction. It's a Western. And the point of view is from Maddie Ross. Maddie Ross is a 64-year-old woman writing the story of what happened to her when she was 14 years old. It takes place in Fort Smith, Arkansas, mainly, and also in the Indian Territory near there. And the villain is named Tom Cheney. And Tom Cheney has killed Maddie Ross's father, just in cold blood for no reason. And so Maddie goes to the town where her father was killed, and she is looking for someone to help her find Tom Chaney and kill him. And so she goes and asks who's like the toughest, you know, toughest U.S. Marshal around. And they tell her Rooster Cogburn is the toughest. And so she meets Rooster Cogburn, and he's this old fat guy with one eye and an attitude. But she decides she wants to hire him to help her find Tom Chaney because he has grit. He has true grit. And in addition, she ends up with another guy named LaBeef, who is a Texas Ranger. And this Texas Ranger is also out looking for Tom Chaney, knows him by a different name because he's a criminal. He goes by aliases. And so the three of them head out in this adventure story. I think you're going to find it pretty easy reading, an enjoyable story. It's got humor in it. And so that's the basic background of the story, and we'll start reading it on Thursday. So you need a copy, either digital or the real deal. For Thursday, we'll start reading it then, okay? So please finish up My Antonia, and then we will start with our new book. You will have a final assignment on Thursday on My Antonia, and I think my dog, who's kind of a new dog, here she is. Move this out of the way. Come here, girl. Here. This is our new dog. Come on. Oh, there we go. There she is. She's going to be 1 year old in 2 weeks. And her name is Truly. All right, you guys. Have a good day. Bye for now.